Welcome in my classroom. So today I'm recording a next section of the permaculture design course. And for those of you who are curious, I just want to talk about something that it's not often talked about and it can seem very complicated. And I just wanted to give you a little peek of what I talk about in this permaculture design course. So this is something that you come across. I don't know if you see it on the board. I don't think so because the board is flipped for you. Hey Lika. But I want to talk about hybrids, open pollinated seeds, heirlooms, and genetically modified organisms. This is one of the most questions that I get asked. People are very afraid of genetically modified organisms. They are afraid that it will end up in their seeds. They think that they buy genetically modified organisms, GMO seeds, and they just want to make sure, like, hey, what does that actually mean? And this is the part where it can get really, really complicated for us, especially for hobby gardeners or people who do this for fun or they just grow their own food. People are often very afraid of all the different terminology and they don't really understand what it means. So I just wanted to take this time from you to give you a little bit of a class on GMO seeds and what it actually all means. Oh. Is it better now? Tiller. Oh, it's not the best. Can I do it like this? Is this better? Let me know. Better? I hope so. I hope so. Yeah, this is a little bit... I don't have the best internet here. Like this. Maybe this is better. I often open the door and then, yeah. I hope this is better, Lieke. So I just go ahead and continue our little class together on seeds because it makes me excited to talk about these things because I find it so important for consumers to be aware of all these differences and know what to look out for, know what you can buy or what you should buy. So I want to start with a hybrid. I'm going to write it again on my board so that you can see. This is a little bit better, I think. Hybrid. Of course, this is mirrored, but it doesn't really matter. So what is a hybrid variety? Often we see in seeds that this is of F1. It says on the seed package that this is an F1. I'm sorry that it's mirrored, you guys, but we just have to deal with it for now. So it often says that it's an F1. You see that on a seed package, like everywhere around the world. What this means is that it's cross-pollinated of two varieties. So for example, you want to breed a tomato that is drought resistant and you want to pair that with a tomato that has like a beautiful color, for example, or a good flavor. What you then do is you cross-pollinate these two so that it becomes a different species. So now we have two parents that make a baby, and that baby is that new species, that new variety. So parent and parent, they make a new variety, and that's done by cross-pollination. This is already where people get afraid, like, oh, is that what does that do? Is that genetically modified? Is that a genetically modified organism? Well, it could be. This is where it gets complicated. So it could be, but this is also a natural occurrence in evolution and in humanity. Since we started, we derive from forest gatherers to actually gardeners in an essence. We did this already like maybe thousands of years ago. We cross-pollinated two varieties to make something new. And that's why we have so many great varieties now on tomatoes, for example. Cross-pollination can also occur naturally. So I was talking with someone and she had a pumpkin that tasted so horrible. And I said to her, hey, is there a cucumber growing nearby? And she said, yes, how do you know? I said, well, that's cross-pollination. Sometimes when a certain within a family a certain species by accident gets cross-pollinated by bees, or I don't know, it doesn't really matter, by the wind or by yourself by accident, it can get like a nasty fruit. Can happen. I had cross-pollination last year in one of my tomatoes, in my cherry tomatoes. Oh, those tomatoes tasted awful. And then I knew, okay, that's a cross-pollination. It's by accident. But you could also choose that, like as a botanist or someone. You can choose to cross two varieties. Nothing wrong there. So that's not an issue if they're cross-pollinated. What the issue is that, okay, those two parents, they make a new variety right here. If you then want to regrow that new variety, so next year, from the seeds of this new variety, you want to grow new plants, right? That can happen. If you're a smart gardener, you always want to make sure that you save your seeds. Now, this is what will happen. Because they are cross-pollinated, these children from that offspring won't ever look the same as this one. They won't ever be the same. It cannot happen. And that's the problem with F1 varieties. So when I speak to my clients, I never want them, well, almost never. Sometimes you cannot really go around it if there's seed shortage, like last year. Using an F1 variety, so you grow an F1 variety of seeds, and then you save those seeds for next year because you're a good gardener. These won't ever be the same. So they taste different, maybe they look funny. Within cucumbers, it could mean that they could be poisonous. If you don't know what you're doing, it could set you up for some trouble in your garden. And it can never reproduce with the same outcome. So these kids will be different than that variety. Okay, so that's on hybrids. I hope that makes sense to you. So that's why I always strive not to buy F1 seeds for my clients or for myself. Sometimes it happens that it's okay. Like it's not bad for you to eat an F1 hybrid. It's not bad. But the problem is, oh yeah, thank you. Bloemeloog, thank you. It is very good to know, because a lot of fear happens because it's so unclear, all this terminology. Okay, so that's a hybrid. That's number one. Now we have open pollination. I work with clients in the US and Canada, and this is what I often come across, open pollinated seeds. So MI Gardener is one gardener, and Baker Creek have open pollinated varieties. What does this mean? You see it on a whole lot of seed saving packages as well. If you want to have like a victory garden, or you want to order seeds for later on, like a security kind of garden thing, this is what it says, like open pollinated, non-GMO, blah, 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 all this American kind of terminology. But what it means is this is why it's so great. And these are plants that are naturally pollinated. So from bees, from butterflies, from the wind, maybe you hand pollinated your fruiting varieties. That's what it actually means. So it is open pollinated. If they say it on the seeds, that's a good thing, because now we know why. So open pollination is a natural occurrence. What will then happen? This is cool, right? That I have a blackboard. Okay, so this is the plant that is open pollinated. I will draw a little bee for you. I wish Natasha was here to draw for me. So this is a little bee. And this is the variety. Gets open pollinated. Now this is the cool thing with open pollinated varieties. If they produce seeds and you will plant them again, they will be the same as their parents. Isn't that cool? I like this stuff. I like botany so much. I dived into it like maybe a year and a half ago, and I like this kind of thing. It's really geeking me out. And this is what I talk about throughout the permaculture design course. Like this is everything that I talk about constantly. So they are identical to their parents. Now, what does that mean? It means that you could save the seeds year after year if you want to. You don't have to ever buy new seeds again. You can have that same outcome constantly because it is an open pot. Yeah, Mother Nature is awesome, don't you think? It is. I just learned that I need to speak more from this place because you hear it on my voice. Mother Nature is awesome. As long as we understand what the complicated terminology mean, then it's a whole lot easier for us, for gardeners, to use this kind of knowledge to our advantage. So if you see open pollination, it's this one, then you know, oh, that's a good seed package, because that means that I can save seeds from year after year. So last year, I don't know if you noticed, last year I've been trained by Dr. Vandana Shiva. She is very big on seed saving. She calls her graduates, so I did her regenerative agriculture course. She calls her graduates BJACs, which means something in the realm of seed savers of the earth. So I'm a seed saver of the earth, and that's why I always want to strive for open pollinated varieties. Okay, more lessons on seeds. So that is open pollination. There is more to it, because we will get to the scary part later on. Now, this is also something that you can come across, and I sometimes name this. This is heirloom. Heirloom varieties. Heirloom. Now, what this means, and as a historian, I get excited about this part. It is very important to have heirloom practices. And what does that mean? These seed varieties, so this is again a seed or a variety, these seed varieties, a special type, a special kind, is saved from generation after generation, which is very cool. I think if you have still seeds from your great-great-great-grandmother, isn't that amazing? It means that you can plant that same tomato that she grew, which of course then becomes a heritage piece. So you inherit your family traditions. Inherit family traditions. If we talk about generation after generation gardening, which I'm of course all about, I want to design landscapes that last us 2,000 years or more. And this is how you do it. You make sure that you have this practice in place. So if you grow a specific type of tomato that you really love, you make sure that you save these seeds every year. Now, again, you know that it should be an open pollinated. Could be. That is the easiest to save that specific heirloom variety. So for us, it then means that I have that specific type of tomato. For me, it is, I grow a Cœur de Bœuf variety every year. It's always the same kind of Cœur de Bœuf. I don't know this year because it takes so long, but I really like that specific type of tomato. How cool would it be if I save those seeds every year and I then give them to my sons as an heritage? And then I say, listen, you give these seeds, you grow these tomatoes every year. Dr. Vandana Shiva calls this a living seed library, because it's more important to grow a living seed library than a dead one. So just saved seeds in packages. Living seed library is more important. And that's what she trained me on. So what if then I have that tomato, Cœur de Bœuf, a special type of Cœur de Bœuf, because there are many different varieties of a Cœur de Bœuf tomato. And then I give them to my sons, and my sons then give them to their kids if they have kids, if they choose to do so. And those kids can then pass on that tomato variety. And now I'm their great-great-grandmother. And they can still eat the tomatoes that I used to eat. Maybe I'm dead, which is, well, that's like part of life, circle of life. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that an amazing concept to, or amazing tradition to keep in place? So what I'm asking for you is think about something that you really love to eat, and you've been growing this type of tomato or cucumber, or maybe you have an apple tree or something. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. As long as you save those seeds. With an apple tree, it's a little bit harder, so let's keep it on annuals to make it more practical. Maybe you have an onion that you really like. Then save that seeds year after year, and then regrow them again, and re-save those seeds again, and regrow, so that you have a living seed library. And then you pass these on, which is amazing. That's an amazing tradition. So I want you to pick one type that you really love to eat, and then keep on this tradition of heirloom seed varieties. Okay, so that's heirloom. That's still okay, right? We're still good on this. Now it becomes complicated. And this is what I want to point out. They make sure that this is complicated. People that invented this make sure that it's super complicated so that we don't really understand. Do I want to write this on the board? This is a tricky one. GMO. I'm going to erase it again, and it has some consequences to talk about this. So I want to talk about GMO seeds here. What does it mean? Well, it means genetically modified organism. And you could say that there's a whole lot of similarities between hybrids, right? It is kind of similar, but not totally similar. And this is where it gets really tricky. So both are genetically modified. They are cross-pollinated varieties that makes a new species. Are we with it? So this is what happens again, right? There are two parents, not a penis, two parents, and they make a new species. So far, so good. Nothing wrong with that. But this is what happens. It's also called crossbreeding. If you're interested, this is what it's called, crossbreeding. Hybrids can occur naturally. That can happen. We just talked about it. That can happen. No problem there. But what genetically modified organisms do, GMO seeds, is that it's gene splicing. I cannot pronounce it. Splicing, I think. So it's genes. We are then interested in a specific type of gene. No problem here. If you have, for example, those two tomatoes, and you want to make a drought-resistant tomato out of it, I really don't see a problem in that, because that's amazing within one family. Within one variety. Sorry, not a family, within one variety. Because a family could mean that I cross an eggplant with a tomato. Less of a fan. But what does it mean then? This happens into a lab, and what happens is that we have corn and we have a tomato. Now, that corn can be resistant to a predator, right? That can happen. Now we want to grow a tomato. That tomato is not resistant to a certain type of predator. So what they then do is they pick a gene from that corn and just shove it in the gene of the tomato. You see that this is, on an ethical level, this is where it gets borderline. Do we want that to happen? And here's why we don't. So what can occur, and what's now occurring actually, is that it can disrupt a whole ecosystem. Now you have to realize that on the level that we're now talking about, these are all monocrops. This is all used for monocropping. So only that one variety of tomato is being grown on a big field. What if the natural predator-prey relationship is then not honored or respected? It could mean that there will be a whole variety that normally open pollinates this type of tomato cannot do that anymore because that specific gene, they cannot really, I don't want to say recognize, but they cannot do anything with it. So what if there's a bee, for example, and thinks, hey, wait a minute, this tastes different for me, this flower, because there's a gene that's been shoved into, a gene from a corn's been shoved into a tomato, and that bee might not recognize that plant and then cannot pollinate it. For example, that's an example of disrupting a total ecosystem. And then there's no predator-prey relationship, which is like, that's hard, that's devastating. That disrupts a whole ecosystem. Now also be aware that because they're grown in monocrops, also the soil practices are harmful then. That's my like that's usually what happens. I don't want to make like assumptions, but that is usually the case. If we grow monocrops, we're not taking care of our soil, so that means that the total system is then out of balance. Period. It is already out of balance, and then we also integrate a gene from a corn into a tomato field, which shouldn't be there, like in the first place. See what is wrong? We mess with stuff in nature, and I also want to point out that people who do this work, they don't think of the long-term outcome, which is of course my work. I think, okay, so this is what happened 5 years ago, this is what now happens, and if we look at 5 years from now in the future, we might get into problems, and here is why. So I always look long term. It's also a heritage of my historian studies. That's how I look at things. But people who do this, they only care about one thing, of course. Make a quick buck from this. Hey, we now can sell a tomato variety with a corn gene in it, which make it drought resistant, for example. That's what they care about now. But they don't care about the total disruption of an ecosystem, which is, as we know, it's very problematic if you don't think about these things. Okay, so what it also does, you can argue for this. You can say like, okay, Marjolein, I don't really see the issue here. I just want to buy that tomato variety that is drought resistant. That's up to you. And if you don't really care about the outcome in ecosystems, okay, so that's up to you. Cannot really argue for that. But here's what I can argue for. So we talk about GMO seeds. The problem with GMO seeds is that they have a patent. I think. Let's see, I wrote a patent, yeah. So these are patented seeds. What does that actually mean? It means that a company, not gonna name names, have ownership of something that could be natural. So that tomato variety that we talked about, that they just made artificially, they now are owner of that particular variety. I have a whole lot of issues with this. This is not, we cannot take ownership of something that just grows naturally normally. We just can't. You see that is an issue. I own a dog. I own this piece of land. I own this human. It's not, all problems in the world actually stem from something like this, thinking like this. So what will happen? Because I want to keep it practical. So they are now owner of that tomato. For example, a farmer, they might think, okay, I buy seeds once. I buy that seed once for my tomato field, but then the next year I want to regrow it. So that's a second season with those tomatoes. We already know with hybrid varieties, so this is a hybrid. That could be tricky, but they could, for example, farmers in India, they have big issues with this, and also farmers in the US, for example. They want to regrow because they are already so far in depth. I just need to write it down. Depth. They are so far in depth because they have to constantly rebuy every year their seeds, and that's very costly. Maybe these seeds also have a different price tag. I'm not quite sure. But they also need to buy. So this seed is paired with a specific type of biocide. I can talk about this forever, you see. That's why I record a 72-hour course, because it's so fucking complex. So this seed is paired with a specific type of biocide. Can talk about biocides forever, but it's really, really harmful. Something that we don't want in this planet, because it doesn't only wipe out one beetle, for example. It wipes out every other beetle variety in that surrounding, which is super problematic. Okay, so these need to be paired. So that farmer not only needs to buy the seeds, but it also needs to buy the biocides combined with this seed. You see how expensive that is? It is actually mandatory. It is contractually made so that they have to buy both. Well, that means could end up in a whole lot of depth. And then they think, okay, I'm just gonna regrow the seeds that I saved from last year. Now you have a problem. Because it's a patent, in their contracts of this specific company, it states that you are not allowed to regrow that seed type. You are not allowed. You have to buy it every year. You see why that's problematic though? You could get a whole lot of lawsuits while you're already in debt as a farmer. And that is so harmful. I know, now we talk about a little bit of a harsh topic within this field. It is suicide rates amongst farmers in the US, for example. Did you know that they're very, very, very high? Because it's just a constant cycle of I have to loan more because I have to buy this seed variety, I cannot regrow it, and I have to buy this certain biocide, and I cannot really get around it. And if that farmer is by accident, because it happens by accident, that's how nature is. Maybe that tomato, one tomato drops by accident, those seeds will regrow again. If this company finds out that by accident you are regrowing next year those tomatoes that they own because it's a patent, then you get that same lawsuit, and this is a costly one. The suicide rates amongst farmers are because of this, because of GMO seeds. I think that's a problem. That's a real big problem. Now, this is a question I get asked quite often, recently in a training as well. Marjolein, I am a hobby farmer, or I am a hobby gardener. I want to buy seeds. Are they GMO? No. Luckily, not yet. Luckily, not yet. Not yet. The seeds that you will buy for your garden cannot be GMO. They cannot be genetically modified organisms from this particular company. It is luckily, if you are just a consumer or you are a reseller like myself from seeds, no, not yet, which is good. That is a good outcome. So you won't buy genetically modified seeds. Only farmers have the option. So it's still an option. They are not forced to buy these seeds, but the contracts and the language around it is so fuzzy, which is on purpose, of course, that it seems like a good deal to begin with. But once I start in this cycle that we just talked about, it is a problem. So no, GMO seeds are not available to you, which is good. And I will make sure to tell you whenever we get in that situation. There are, for a long time already, there is a lobby going on in Europe that for gardeners, you cannot trade your seeds. They want to put a new law in that we as gardeners, we are not allowed to share seeds. Because now we know why. Because they cannot be patented that way. If we have so much variety to grow, what if we all start with those heirloom traditions, saving seeds for generation after generation from one type of variety? If we're not allowed to trade our seeds or resell or do whatever we want, then there is no control over the whole variety that we eat. Which, of course, there are companies who don't want that to happen. This sounds like conspiracy theory. I am so aware of this, but be mindful that this was my research, part of the research that I did in university. So it's within the university system. I did research, historical research on these kind of topics as well. And that's a little bit different. Like, I didn't Wikipedia the shit out of this. Like, that's also not a problem, but it's not only based on like internet research, not at all actually. And I've been trained to talk about these things by Dr. Vandana Shiva. So just want to put it out there. If you now want to know more on the work that I do, maybe you are a farmer, you want to transition to organic farming, I can help you with that. Maybe you want to have regenerative practices in your estate, or you want to integrate that in your municipality or your community, or you are a school and you're concerned about these topics, or you are a university and want me to come and speak about these things, because I am able to break these kind of very complex topics. I'm able to break them down for you. I did them in like a half an hour. Or maybe you want to just work with me one-on-one on a VIP day regarding one of these kind of gardening topics. Feel free to book a call with me. I'm always open for that. It is a free inspiration call that you can book. The link is in the bio, and I also make sure on Facebook to also include my booking link. You can just book in yourself in my calendar, and then we can talk on the phone on what this will mean for you. It doesn't really matter to me, as long as the core of my mission is always to transform landscapes into fertile lands. And I don't really mind how I do it, as long as I will do it. Thank you so much for listening. And if you want to book that call, just feel free to either DM me. It's in the link in bio, and otherwise I make sure that that link is somewhere. Bye bye.